In July 2020. In a single afternoon, the verified accounts of Barack Obama, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Apple, and even Bitcoin giants fall under the control of a mysterious teenager. Millions watch in real time as the world's most powerful voices are hijacked. But one question remains: how did a 17-year-old break the internet? How did a high school dropout armed with nothing but persuasion and a phone number infiltrate Twitter's deepest internal systems and seize control of the digital identities of the world's elite? Tampa, Florida. A city known for its beaches and sunshine, but in the summer of 2020, it became the epicenter of one of the most audacious cyber attacks in history. His name was Graham Ivan Clark. Born January 9th, 2003, he was just 17 years old, quiet, brilliant, obsessed with computers since childhood. While other teenagers were worrying about prom and college applications, Clark was navigating the dark corners of the internet, mastering the art of digital manipulation. In underground hacker circles, he went by the alias Kirk. To those who knew him online, he was a legend in the making, someone who understood that the most powerful weapon in the digital age wasn't code, it was confidence. But Clark wasn't new to this game. His criminal resume already read like a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked teenage genius. He'd started small, Minecraft scams, stealing accounts and selling them for pocket change. Then he graduated to something more sophisticated: SIM swapping. This is where a hacker tricks a phone company into transferring your phone number to their device, giving them access to your text messages, your two-factor authentication codes, your entire digital life. And in 2019, Clark pulled off something that should have ended his career before it truly began. He extorted a Seattle investor, stealing 164 Bitcoin, worth about $1.2 million at the time. The Secret Service investigated. They even recovered 100 of those Bitcoin. But Clark walked free. Why? Because he was a minor. The system gave him a second chance. He wouldn't waste it, but not in the way anyone hoped. Now, let's zoom out for a moment and remember what the world looked like in 2020. COVID-19 had turned everything upside down. Lockdowns were in full effect. Offices sat empty. Millions of employees, including those at the world's biggest tech companies, were suddenly working from home, often on personal networks, in makeshift home offices, juggling childcare and Zoom calls and the constant anxiety of a global pandemic. Companies were scrambling. VPN issues were constant. IT departments were overwhelmed. Security protocols that had worked fine in controlled office environments were now stretched thin across thousands of home Wi-Fi networks. Human error was everywhere. And where there's human error, there's opportunity. Now, why does Twitter matter so much in this story? Because Twitter isn't just another social media platform. It's the global loudspeaker for presidents, CEOs, and celebrities. One tweet from Elon Musk can move Tesla's stock price by billions. One statement from a former president can dominate news cycles for days. One message from Bill Gates reaches millions instantly. Twitter had become the central nervous system of public discourse. And here's the terrifying part. At the time, over 1,000 Twitter employees had broad access to powerful internal tools that could reset passwords, disable security features, and take complete control of any user account. In other words, Twitter was a fortress, but it had 1,000 keys, and some of those keys were in the hands of people working from their kitchen tables. In June 2020, Clark makes a discovery. Twitter employees can be tricked simply by calling them. Think about that for a second. No sophisticated malware, no zero-day exploits, no weeks of code breaking, just a phone call. He starts experimenting with something called vishing, voice phishing. It's exactly what it sounds like. You call someone, pretend to be someone you're not, and convince them to give you what you want. Clark begins impersonating Twitter IT staff. His script is simple, almost boring in its mundanity. Hey, we're having some VPN connectivity issues today. A lot of people working from home are experiencing problems. Can you help me troubleshoot this? Remember, it's 2020. VPN issues are as common as rain. Employees are stressed, overwhelmed, isolated, When someone from IT calls with a plausible problem and a helpful tone, most people cooperate. And that cooperation, that's his door into Twitter's brain. Here's how it works. Clark sets up a fake VPN login page. It looks exactly like Twitter's real portal. Same colors, same logo, same layout. When you're tired and just trying to get your work done, you wouldn't notice the difference. He calls an employee. Walks them through the fix. The employee types in their username and password on Clark's fake page. Behind the scenes, Clark captures those credentials. But here's the genius part. The fake page simultaneously logs them into the real Twitter system, so they don't suspect anything went wrong. Boom, he's in. Clark now has access to Twitter's internal dashboards, the kind of access that most users don't even know exists. Suddenly, he has godlike powers. He can reset any password. He can disable two-factor authentication. He can take over any account on the entire platform. Barack Obama? Check. Elon Musk? Check. Your account? Check. But here's the thing. He doesn't strike immediately. He's patient. He explores. He learns the system. He tests the boundaries of his access. Because Clark doesn't just want to steal an account or two. He wants something bigger. Clark knows he can't do this alone, not if he wants to maximize the opportunity, so he reaches out to others in the underground hacker community. Enter Mason John Shepard, a 19-year-old from the United Kingdom, known online as Chewon. Shepard specializes in buying and selling rare Twitter usernames, those coveted OG handles, like single letters or simple words that go for thousands of dollars on underground forums. Then there's Nima Fazeli, 22 years old, from Orlando, Florida. His online alias is Rolex. Fazeli acts as a middleman, connecting buyers and sellers, brokering deals in the digital black market. And finally, there's Joseph James O'Connor, the oldest of the group at 21, from Liverpool, United Kingdom. He goes by Plug Walk Joe. O'Connor is more experienced, more dangerous. He's already involved in extortion schemes, stalking, and cryptocurrency theft. But here's the critical detail. None of them know who Clark really is. They all believe he's an insider, an actual Twitter employee willing to abuse his access for profit. Clark has convinced them he's one of them, someone with legitimate credentials who just happens to be morally flexible. They think they're buying access to rare usernames, making a few $1,000s on the side. But Clark has a much more dramatic plan forming in his mind. First, they start small, a test run. The team begins selling rare Twitter handles. Usernames like Adark, AXX, AB. Simple, memorable handles that status-obsessed internet users will pay premium prices to own. These transactions happen on forums like OG Users, a marketplace where digital identities are bought and sold like baseball cards. A good username can fetch thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. Clark is learning as he goes. Each stolen username confirms his power. Each successful sale proves the access is real. He's inside Twitter's control panel, and he can do anything. But as the days pass, something shifts in Clark's thinking. He realizes that selling usernames is small time. It's profitable, sure, but it's not memorable. Clark doesn't just want money anymore. He wants attention. He wants to make history. He wants the world to know what he's done. And that's when the idea hits him. Bitcoin. The anonymous, untraceable digital currency that's been the darling of hackers and criminals since its creation. Clark gets an idea, a brilliantly simple, almost comically brazen idea. What if he used the world's most trusted Twitter accounts to promote a Bitcoin doubling scam? You know the type. You've probably seen variations in your spam folder. Send me money, and I'll send you back double. It's one of the oldest scams in the book, the kind of thing that only works on the most gullible victims. But what if that message came from Barack Obama, from Elon Musk, from Bill Gates? Suddenly, that obvious scam has the weight of the world's most powerful voices behind it. Suddenly, it doesn't look like a scam at all. It looks like philanthropy, a giveaway, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Clark prepares a Bitcoin wallet. He crafts the message carefully. I'm giving back to my community. All Bitcoin sent to the address below will be returned doubled. Simple. Direct. Too good to be true, unless it's coming from someone you trust. Clark stares at his screen, his finger hovering over the button that will change everything. He has access to the digital identities of presidents, billionaires, and tech giants. But which account should he test first? July 15th, 2020. Early afternoon. The first tweet goes out from a cryptocurrency company's account. A test. Then another. The message is spreading, but Clark is just warming up. Then, all at once, the floodgates open. Barack Obama, former president of the United States, tweets, "I'm giving back to the community. All Bitcoin sent to the address below will be sent back doubled." Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, tweets the same message. Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, tweets it too. Then Apple, Uber, Joe Biden, Jeff Bezos, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian. Warren Buffett, major cryptocurrency exchanges, Binance, Coinbase, Gemini, all compromised, all posting identical messages with Bitcoin wallet addresses. 130 accounts, the most influential voices on the planet. All hijacked, all speaking in unison. The world goes silent. Twitter's office erupts in chaos. Engineers scramble. The platform starts locking down verified accounts. Millions of users suddenly can't tweet. The company freezes, unsure if this is a hack, a glitch, or something far worse. News agencies go into overdrive. CNN, BBC, Fox News. They're all trying to make sense of what's happening. Is this a nation-state attack? Russia, China, North Korea? Meanwhile, Bitcoin starts flooding into Clark's wallet. Transaction after transaction. People from around the world, convinced they're getting in on a legitimate giveaway from their heroes, send their cryptocurrency. Over $118,000 in Bitcoin, more than 400 separate transactions, pours in within minutes. The internet isn't just watching history unfold. The internet is the crime scene, and everyone has a front row seat. For a few chaotic hours, a 17-year-old from Tampa, Florida, controls the digital voices of the most powerful people on Earth. And he's just getting started. But here's the thing about the internet. Nothing stays hidden for long. Within hours, the FBI is involved. Cybersecurity experts from around the world start analyzing the blockchain. Because here's the beautiful irony of Bitcoin. It's anonymous, but it's also transparent. Every transaction is recorded on a public ledger. You can follow the money, and they do. Investigators trace the Bitcoin as it moves through mixing services, digital laundromats designed to obscure the origin of cryptocurrency, but even the best mixing services leave breadcrumbs. Meanwhile, the digital forensics team at Twitter starts pulling logs. They identify which internal tools were accessed. They trace the exact moment each account was compromised. They find the employee credentials that were stolen. Then the leaks begin. Discord chats, private messages, screenshots from OG users' forum. The underground community that helped facilitate the username sales starts to crack under pressure. People get nervous. They start talking. They start pointing fingers. Mason Shepard, Nima Fazeli, Joseph James O'Connor. Their digital aliases are connected to real names, real addresses, real people. But the biggest break comes from Clark himself. Because despite all his careful planning, despite his digital prowess, Graham Ivan Clark makes the kind of mistake that has brought down countless criminals throughout history. He gets cocky. At some point during the hack, Clark logs into Twitter's internal tools without masking his home IP address. It's a small slip, maybe just a moment of distraction, but it's enough. That IP address traces directly back to Tampa, Florida, to a specific apartment, to a teenager living with his mother. In less than 2 weeks, investigators trace the hack not to a nation-state, not to a sophisticated criminal syndicate operating from an underground bunker, but to a teenager sitting in his mother's apartment, probably eating cereal, thinking he'd gotten away with the crime of the century. He hadn't. July 31st, 2020. 2 weeks after the hack, federal agents knock on the door of Graham Ivan Clark's Tampa apartment. He's arrested without incident. No dramatic chase, no confrontation, just a kid and the sudden, crushing realization that his life as he knew it is over. Clark faces 30 felony charges: communications fraud, identity theft, fraudulent use of personal information, and unauthorized computer access. The charges carry the potential for decades in prison. But Clark is 17, still a minor, and Florida has a special provision for young offenders. On March 16, 2021, he accepts a plea deal under Florida's Youthful Offender Act. The sentence: 3 years in prison, including time in a military-style boot camp program, followed by 3 years of probation, for orchestrating one of the most significant cyber attacks in history. Clark will serve less time than many people serve for drug possession. He's released from the St. Petersburg Community Release Center on February 16, 2023. He's now on probation until February 15, 2026, with strict conditions: no unauthorized use of computers or electronic devices. He's required to get permission before touching a laptop. Graham Ivan Clark is free, but his digital life, the only life he ever really knew, is over. The others aren't so lucky. Mason Shepard and Nima Fazeli face federal charges. The full weight of the US justice system comes down on them. But it's Joseph James O'Connor, Plugwalk Joe, who receives the harshest treatment. He's extradited from Spain to the United States. In June 2023, he pleads guilty to multiple charges: computer intrusion, wire fraud, extortion. He's sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. And the legal consequences don't end there. In November 2025, just recently, a UK court orders O'Connor to repay $4.1 million, about $5.4 million, in stolen cryptocurrency. This figure represents not just the Bitcoin from the Twitter hack, but the appreciated value of all the cryptocurrency he stole across multiple crimes. Because while Clark was stealing Twitter accounts, O'Connor was running a much broader criminal enterprise: stalking, extortion, additional crypto thefts. The Twitter hack was just one chapter in his story. For Twitter, the hack is a global embarrassment. The company is forced to admit some uncomfortable truths. At the time of the hack, Twitter didn't have a chief information security officer. The position had been vacant since December 2019. Over 1,000 employees had access to powerful internal tools with insufficient oversight. The company's multi-factor authentication was inadequate, relying on app-based methods that were easily bypassed by Clark's social engineering. There was no robust monitoring for anomalous activity. No alarm bells went off when dozens of high-profile accounts were compromised in rapid succession. The New York Department of Financial Services launches an investigation. Their report is damning. They highlight how the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated existing security weaknesses. Employees working from home had no additional compensating controls. The phishing attack succeeded because Twitter's security culture wasn't prepared for distributed remote work. The recommendations that follow are sweeping. Appoint a CISO immediately. Enforce hardware-based multi-factor authentication for critical systems. Conduct regular phishing simulations to train employees. Establish anomaly detection logs that flag suspicious access patterns. Some experts even call for new regulations treating large social media platforms as systemically important institutions, like banks, with dedicated government oversight. The world watches in stunned fascination. Shock ripples across social media. How could a teenager pull this off? How could Twitter, a company worth billions, be so vulnerable? Memes explode overnight. Jokes about the hack flood the very platform that was victimized. The stolen Bitcoin becomes a running gag as its value fluctuates wildly in the years that follow. By the time Clark is released from prison in 2023, the Bitcoin he stole is worth significantly more than it was in 2020. There's a dark irony in that. While Clark sits in prison, the cryptocurrency he stole appreciates, mocking him from the blockchain. But beyond the memes and the jokes, the hack sparks serious conversations. Governments around the world call for tighter regulation of social media companies. Cybersecurity experts write papers about the incident, using it as a case study in social engineering vulnerabilities. And in hacker communities, there's a sobering realization. The false belief that such attacks could remain anonymous was exactly that: false. The digital age leaves trails, always. Let's step back and think about what actually happened here. Graham Ivan Clark didn't use sophisticated malware that took years to develop. He didn't break military-grade encryption. He didn't hack from a basement filled with servers and screens like you see in movies. He picked up the phone. He impersonated an IT worker. He created a fake login page. He exploited the most human vulnerability of all: trust. And for a few hours on a July afternoon in 2020, that was enough to hijack the digital voices of presidents, billionaires, and celebrities. That was enough to steal over $118,000. That was enough to bring one of the world's most influential platforms to its knees. The boy who stole Obama, Elon Musk, and Bitcoin proved something terrifying that day, something that keeps cybersecurity experts awake at night. Our greatest vulnerabilities aren't in our code. They're not in our firewalls or our encryption algorithms or our security protocols. They're in ourselves, in our exhaustion, in our trust, in our willingness to help when someone calls with a problem, in our assumption that the voice on the other end of the line is who they say they are. Technology can be patched, software can be updated, but human nature, that's a vulnerability that will never be fully fixed. And somewhere, right now, someone else is learning that lesson. Someone else is dialing a number, crafting a convincing story, preparing to exploit the next crack in the system. Because if a 17-year-old from Tampa could break the internet with nothing but confidence and a phone call, who's to say what comes next?